Hello and welcome to Dark Alignment Podcast. I'm Brittney.
And I'm Eruca.
And we are a true crime astrology podcast coming at you straight at your face.
Right now.
So the last time that we were here, we talked about Juana Barraza, who was the little old lady killer. She was Mexico's first serial killer and first female serial killer. So like a 2-in-1 episode. Yeah,
2-in-1.
It was a 2-in-1. So that was a good one. So check that one out if you have not already. And then the episode before that, season 3, episode 7, we covered the Manson family. Are you holding back?
Yeah.
I want you to just do it.
Manson girls.
Yes, we did cover them.
Okay.
And you can stay connected with us and always know what's going on so you don't miss new episodes, you don't miss updates. Make sure you are following, subscribe to everything so you get all the notifications. Like us on social media. Rate and review on whatever platform you're listening. Whatever that platform says you can do to support us, which doesn't cost you anything. Just a minute of your time.
I really just want to empower everybody in this moment. Yes. I want everyone to internally reflect on how they got to this video or podcast recording right now. How did you get here? How you are so capable of finding this podcast and hitting play. And I just want to remind everyone that you are also capable of hitting like and subscribe and follow. Like, this is something that you can...
You can share.
You can completely do.
You can pay it forward.
I want everyone to know that they are capable. And
we believe in you.
We believe in you.
It really does help the podcast out a lot. Like, can't even tell you guys from a business standpoint, like, it really helps us have more visibility. It helps more people find us. So actually, in your, whatever you say in your review, we don't care at all what words
What's your
you say.
favorite animal?
Tell us your favorite animal, or tell us, like, how you found the podcast. Did, like, your sister tell you about it? Did your mom? Because your mom sounds cool. Your mom is cool if she told you about it.
If we get a bunch of comments that are just your mom, I'm going to be so happy.
I would be, please just say your mom, and wherever you are, like, just write your mom so we know you're here. That would make me...
Roll call. We're calling attendance. Everyone needs to comment.
Everybody say your mom after you do the other things we asked. Please.
I wish I'd done that when I had a classroom of kids. Like
convince them.
Like, instead of saying here, just say your mom.
Your mom.
That would be so fun.
That would be fun. That would be fun until somebody gets offended. It's all fun until somebody gets upset about it. You know, somebody will. We also have a website where you can get some of our super cool merchandise. You can also join our Patreon. We have 3 different tiers. You get different access to cool stuff, behind the scenes footage, special videos. We do like cool little series, like we did Astrology of the Senses. We did the serial killer dating game. We've had some fun stuff going on there. So you can get all of that. It's darkalignmentpodcast.com. We're on all the platforms too, so you can connect with us on social media. We try to give you fun stuff on the stories, especially.
The stories.
The stories is where it's at.
We try to
have a pretty good time on there.
Yeah.
So
the stories on the Instagram.
On the Instagrams. So without further ado, I think we are ready to get into this episode.
Oh wait. Your book?
Okay, we do.
Your book.
We do have other... I'm downplaying my life right now.
And yeah.
We do have other things going on. Okay, we talked about this before we start recording. We, like, never talk about ourselves. We just are, like, promoting the podcast, and we don't ever tell you guys what we've got going on.
Because we have other cool stuff going on. And you guys need to know about it.
Yes, we do cool stuff, and you're not going to know about it if we don't tell you about it. We can't just expect you to know and be mad that you don't know.
Yep, that's been my...
That's been a thing that's been going on. Not with this specifically.
Right.
But,
okay.
Yeah.
So
Sidebar. So I have released on Amazon, it is a dream journal and dream guide. So for those of you who don't know, I do dream analysis readings. It's one of my favorite things that I get to do.
She's the best of the best.
Thank you. It's such a good time. But in this book, I'm actually teaching you how to decode your own dreams and pick apart the sublayers. So it's a lot of fun. And there's also a whole section for journaling. So yeah, it's a nice reference for when you start on your dream journaling journey. Ooh, that was a tough thing. Ooh, that's a tough thing to say. It's a wild ride. But yeah, that is available on Amazon. So I guess we'll put that in our link tree, maybe.
Yeah, and I'll put it in the description.
Well,
here,
okay, sure. We'll put it.
It'll be everywhere.
Just look for the link. It's there. I promise.
You will stumble. You will find it.
You will find it, and you are doing.
And I have a couple specialty readings coming up. These are readings you can't get at any other times of the year. So listen up closely. Okay. Spring is coming upon us soon. March 20th will be the spring equinox, and it'll be the start of Aries season. It'll be Ostara. It's going to be springtime.
I always feel like it's the new year. Like, I always feel like I'm celebrating the new year.
It's kind of the astrological new year, you know?
Yes.
And I do have year ahead readings if you guys are interested in that, but I do offer those all year. So then people who are having like a birthday could get one for their personal year of like the day they're born to the, for that year.
Yeah, I highly recommend starting up an astrological new year too. I always feel like that is my new year. Every year I feel it. I feel the shift. Like it just goes, this Pisces energy will be like real heavy. It's the rebirth time. Yep, and then I feel it lighten up. I always feel it.
I love spring. I don't really start too many of my like resolutions or whatever until like spring. Like, I'm not too hard. Like, I'll do a little bit before, like January, February, but like late March is really when I get into doing stuff.
Honestly think that my Virgo rising is consistently adding new constant resolutions year-round 365. I feel like I'm still working on like my list, and it's ever growing, and it's always a rotating list. So I don't know. Well, strategic New Year's. Maybe I should get a reading, and you can tell me what my strategic New Year resolution should be.
So my spring reading is in line with this a little bit as well, but it's a little bit more personalized in rather than looking at a whole year like my year ahead reading. This is a little bit more like, hey, this is what's going on like for spring, like right now. It's called my Spring Reawakening reading. It's re-energizing and refocusing. It's an astrology, tarot, rune, oracle, and pendulum reading. I like to do integrated readings for you guys that don't know, so I incorporate all of the things. I usually start with the astrology portion, and then I'll go into all of like the channeling and energy work more so. And this will be a 2-part reading where we first look at how to kind of like bring up your energy, like revitalizing. And then the second part, which is a Patreon only reading typically. So I'm bringing it out to the peoples.
Coming out.
The second part is what is ready for your focus right now. So it's a really great,
kicking it off.
Let's get energized and focus on what we want to do.
I love this.
Following that, my next one that I have coming up will be for the eclipse in April. So April 30th, there's going to be a solar eclipse. You got to know what's going to happen for you on the eclipses.
I've had eclipse readings before, and they are so good. I love my eclipse reading. I actually should go back and listen to it again.
Eclipses are really fascinating because they... when I look at the eclipses, I'm also kind of looking at previous eclipses that have come up because of the way they work on your charts.
Yes, you did that on mine, and it was like hitting the same spots, like alternating between the same spots over and over and over and over. Like it's
very intense,
and it had all these like really intense themes. Yeah, it was really interesting to take a look at that.
So that will be available all the way up to April 30th. It'll be available from like the beginning of April to April 30th. You can check that out, and then the Spring Reawakening reading will be available now through the 20th of March.
Sweet, thank you. This is good.
I'm very excited.
Look at us. We told you things that what we're doing in the world. Like, we really just never mention it. It's super funny. I realize this as we move forward in this podcast journey. So, okay.
We're learning things every day. You know, we're still growing as people.
We are.
And developing as humans.
Forever and always. So we are going to cover a human that, I don't know. Well, you decide what you think. We are covering GWEN SHAMBLIN tonight. And for those of you who don't know about her, this is a really like shocking and strange story. And we are actually now having our second cult on the podcast, just 2 episodes apart. We did Manson episode 7. We're on episode 9.
Oh yeah, this is cult season.
Yeah, this is cult season. We dipped our toes in, and now we're into it. I loved doing the Manson episode. I felt like that was so much fun to just kind of the way we covered it was a good time. I really enjoyed creating that episode. So, and also unusual that there's a female cult leader. That is
unusual.
Uncommon.
And we just had International Women's Day yesterday.
Oh my god. I don't know how I feel about that related to this story. But as
fascinating.
It is. It's interesting that's the energy. We've covered a lot of women this season too. This is like the ladies season for the ladies. I don't know.
Stupid.
Okay, so my sources, I did not do a good job. I was telling you before we started recording that like
she did it a little bit different, but I don't think it's bad.
Yeah, I did my research very differently for this episode, but of course Wikipedia is always an amazing source for anything that I wanted to specifically find or get deeper into. Like Wikipedia is always a good resource. Wiki, please donate. And I listened to and watched probably like 85 different like podcasts and documentaries about this entire story, this entire situation. So yeah, I did not do a good job keeping track at all. I kind of was like over researching this one in a very strange way. I normally start with like all my written stuff, and I kind of did that in a bullet point kind of way, which I never do. I just did things very different for this one.
I took my notes differently because I do every time. So
there's some reason that this episode was really different, but here's what I did manage to actually write down as far as sources. So, all right, hooray for me. News Channel 5, The Millionaire Preacher, Cultish, GWEN SHAMBLIN and Remnant Fellowship, and interviews from both former members and GWEN SHAMBLIN herself. And I watched the Remnant Fellowship YouTube channel. Like it exists.
I gotta go watch.
Well, because this entire thing still exists. This is a current story. Like that's the thing is like with Manson and everything, it's like a resolution where that's disbanded. It's not there anymore. Like same if we were to cover something like Jonestown. Like these are past things.
Those witch trials.
Right. These are past things that have happened and we have not.
This one was pretty recent.
It's still happening. You know, like this is still, it's interesting. I don't really know. Yeah, we'll get into it. Okay. Anyway. So, GWEN SHAMBLIN is basically like if I were to give you one sentence to sum her up, because there's so many things that we're going to cover with her. Basically, she's like a weight loss cult leader, a self-proclaimed prophet, and this whole thing happened in Tennessee. So this was all a southern, rich, white lady. Yeah. So we'll get into who she was. I couldn't find much about her childhood, which kind of sucked. I was specifically trying to find more information. And the most of the information I got was actually hearing former members talk about her and talk about her life. So that was like the best. It was hard to find anything.
I couldn't get a birth time.
Yeah. It was hard to find out a lot about her young life. But she was raised in Church of Christ family, which is extremely strict. Very, very strict religion. And she was old money when she grew up. So she was like really wealthy. Her family had a lot of money.
So she grew up with the money.
Yes.
Okay.
She lived with her family in Ashlawn, which is a historic mansion in Brentwood, Tennessee. And it was built in 1838. So she grew up in this like manor. Like, you know what I like how they have like the fancy plantations that have been there for a million years and it's been owned by the certain family for generations and blah, blah, blah. Like, so it's that kind of bullshit. Yeah, super fancy. Her family had very conservative religious views. Obviously, in the South, that's very common, but especially with Church of Christ. So she graduated high school in 1973, and that was about the time she started to struggle with her weight. So she went to college. She was actually very intelligent. She was working on her undergrad when she married her first husband, David Shamblin. She started working on her weight loss goals while she was working on her master's degree. So she had a master's degree in food and nutrition with an emphasis in biochemistry, which I thought was very interesting because you have a similar college.
Yeah, I have a degree in biochemistry.
Yeah, and you study nutrition.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I have a minor in nutrition.
Yes. So Gwen knows better than everything that she's doing too. Like that's just kind of like showing she has the education to back up. Like she knows better.
I will say if she went in what the 70s.
Let's see, 1973 she graduated high school. So yeah, it was in like mid-70s.
There are some textbooks. The thing with the with the nutritional textbooks, a lot of the times they are written in the interests of big companies, big industries in the United States.
Yes.
So some of it will still not be what the science actually says, and that's what I learned a lot by being able to see the science on the biochemistry side, and then also like see it how it's how they're presenting it on the nutrition and nutritional courses.
There are some very big political
There's a lot of politics, so some of it she may have learned some things wrong, but
she's still I mean we'll get into what
science has been able to show us more over the years, but a lot of the stuff that the industries fight have been around for a long time. We've known better for a long time.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I think, about this case is like she really did. She's a registered dietitian as well. She has all the right credentials to earn the trust of people.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it, and vulnerable people who are looking to lose weight. Like it's one of those things. It's a really sensitive thing. I've struggled with weight stuff in my life. Like I know how sensitive that whole thing can be.
It's really the perfect time to come in and swoop people up for a cult.
Which I think I did mention this to you, but I was low-key in a weird weight loss cult for a couple of years. Like I wrote a paper on it in college about cognitive dissonance and what that experience was like. So maybe we'll share that on Patreon.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe I should share that whole thing on Patreon.
Please,
so I was a good candidate for something like this. This is a whole thing. And she started to officially counsel people for weight issues in 1980. Okay. So this was also a height of like diet trends were really big. Like shit like.
And like workout tapes.
That whole thing. But she didn't really do any of that. She didn't really give any diet plan, nothing formalized, no exercise plan. It's so interesting.
Okay.
So we're going to get into her whole diet bullshit. So weight down workshops. That's what we're talking about. This is the whole thing. So in 1986, she founded the Way Down program. And the name of this was so interesting because I had thought it was just Way Down Workshop. And then I was listening to interviews of former members and they were saying Weight Down Workshop. And then one of the members mentioned that it had a T at the end, but the T was like a cross. Like that changed later.
That's why.
But that changed later.
Saying not both words,
right?
And
that was added. That was later, like after it became Christian based. Like this is when it turned culty. So the early days, it wasn't that way though.
Okay.
So it didn't start that way. But I want to kind of talk about the difference in the name because I really did think it was Way Down Workshop, and then I heard this story. Not faith-based at the beginning. It was about genetics, metabolism, and behavior modification. So she started out with like, from her own story, that like people would lose weight, gain it back. Like, why is it harder for some people to lose weight, or why are some people heavy and some people aren't? Like, she was really interested in kind of creating a way to help people. Like, it seems like that at first.
It takes a lot of effort to finish those kind of programs, like education-wise. So, I mean, she had to care.
Yeah, and to get your master's in it and then go on and, like, do this work in it. Like, a lot of people get degrees and don't really use them, but she was like, I'm doing this to gain the credentials to do this bigger thing. So she was, like, building something this whole time. And yeah, she noticed that people in her program would lose weight and gain it back. So that was really upsetting to her because she just felt like nothing's happening, like I'm failing, like this isn't, people aren't getting lasting results. So she wasn't happy with how, that wasn't like long term for people. So it was around 1990 that she decided she was going to go to God and pray about it. That was her, you know, she grew up very religious. That was her natural thing. Like, I'm just going to pray about it. So this is when shit gets weird because she says that God spoke to her. When people say that sort of thing, they are putting themselves in that kind of prophet place.
And they tend to stick to that one thing that they maybe channeled like one time and then never veer from it or never like things change and develop, and like that's why when you get readings at different times of your life where you can get messages at different times, it's not like one thing is going to last like forever. That's like the one thing you only have to ever listen to.
But what I love is that you just like nailed it, because I was about to say the one thing that she was focused on, and it carries into absolutely every aspect of this entire story. So
that's what the people that like channel one thing once feel like. It's like, oh, I got this one opportunity, and then they run with it forever, and no matter how much damage that it causes.
That's exactly, and that's the story, everybody. No, that's basically it. So that's amazing. No,
my Aquarius ran with it. Sorry.
It's fantastic.
Okay,
I loved it. I loved every second of it. I was feeling you being on a roll, and I absolutely love it. So
it makes me.
Are you ready to hear?
It gets my blood boiling, so, you know.
Are you ready to hear the divine message that she received?
Yep.
People were not being obedient. Obedient is the word. Obedient is like...
Oh, that's scary.
Yep, it gets very scary. So she said it was a calling that she had from God to create a Christian-based weight loss program. That was what was missing. So... her Way Down workshops consisted of 12-week seminars guided by video and audio tapes. It was basically like, at first it was like basically intuitive eating. She encouraged people to eat more slowly, savor the food, and stay in control.
Okay.
So those are not bad tips. Like
no.
Those, but like I said, there were no specific dietary recommendations. There were like no restricting, no exercise, which I think is positive. I think that's good. Like not subscribing people, here's your eating pattern and here's your eating template. That's called extreme dieting. So she wasn't saying that. But she did like have these convictions and beliefs that her program could help anybody. She even believed like she could help people with anorexia and bulimia, and they could be cured through her program. I don't like that. I do not feel that she is qualified to be doing eating disorder recovery type things.
No,
there's a psychological component.
Yeah.
I have been in eating disorder rehab 2 times in my life. I do not feel like this woman, even with a master's degree, is
It's not
qualified.
the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
No.
That's a major psychological issue. It's not, so she's making some pretty intense claims, but she's very confident. She's very confident in her program and her new way and her new abilities here. So... she started by holding these weight loss Bible studies in her home. So it's like group meetings. So it starts out pretty small, pretty bare bones, but it really caught on. So it spread kind of like wildfire. Her program was growing a whole lot. Obviously, again, 1980s, like the whole diet industry was really amping up. And it's still today, it's like a multi-billion-dollar industry still to this day. People are still subscribing to all these like, hardcore diet things. We see it all the time.
Yeah.
But this is insane. By 1997, she changed her program to be faith-based in 1990. So in 7 years, her program had made it into over 70 countries. So she is dominating within the first 7 years. So these workshops are being held in over 30,000 meetings worldwide. Her curriculum started to be used in Christian churches, like mainstream churches, and then her video, like her VHS tapes and recordings were all sold. So she like turned this into a major industry for her. So
and for that to be such a confirmation of her initial message that she maybe channeled, I mean, that's strong. That's empowering for her, I'm sure.
Yes, and she got to see like adding God to the
Validating.
program just really took it from people regaining the weight to it's now everywhere and everybody loves it and it's going great. So she's feeling like she's jacked about it.
Yeah.
Like, so she obviously needed to create an entire fellowship and start her own church for the amazing program, right? I mean,
I guess that's the next step.
that's exactly the next fucking step. So she founded the Remnant Fellowship Church in 1999 in Franklin, Tennessee. The church's building was completed in 2004, and it was on 40 acres that she purchased in a really affluent area of Tennessee. It was in Brentwood, so it's outside of Nashville. It's like a real rich area. Like, so this tells you a little bit about the culture. Again, she's old money. She grew up with money already. Like, she already has this capital to fund her projects too. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody could produce all the videos and get them out, but like she had the means and the resources to make that happen.
I mean, most businesses, what slows people down is like the money to be able to make it happen.
Like the startup money, she had that. That was not a big deal for her to do that. So this is just insane. Like, it all became, once the mainstream churches started using her workshops and it became this really popular thing, that's actually how she started recruiting people into her church. People were literally moving to Tennessee to be part of Remnant Fellowship and like be closer to all of it. So she's having all this success and she's becoming more rich from this as well. Like, she's getting money from all these sales of all these items. So her first book about the program, she started to become an author.
Okay.
Sold over 1 million copies. Like, people loved like the shit she was saying.
It makes me wonder if anyone I grew up, because I was like a kid in the 90s, if like anyone I know was like buying her stuff when I was a kid.
Probably everybody. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, any like 90s moms going to church a lot that like wanted to lose weight, and there's like the Jenny Craig route or whatever, and Weight Watchers, or you could like do it at your church, which through the church, it was probably like the church was buying the materials probably. Like, you're probably being supplied these materials.
I did a ton of church stuff growing up.
I did too, and it's like we always had something going on. But yeah, like, this was definitely, they have all like the women's groups and all these little things. And so I can see how this caught on.
Right.
Like, really. And then having that like community with your like little group in the group, like groups within groups. She had subcults all over the country and these people didn't even know it. So it's really wild. She also gained a lot of fame from this, which is nuts. You have to watch the interviews. But she has been on the Today Show. She's been on 2020. She's been on BBC. She's been on Larry King Live. She was on the Tyra Banks Show.
Wow.
Like, everything. She did book tours. She taught the curriculum live, like on stage, like basically kind of motivational speaking. She was a really good, like, strong public speaker. Wow. Her daughter is as well. I watched Elizabeth. I actually think she's a better speaker than her mom. Which is kind of terrifying, because she is now the one in charge of the fellowship. So okay. So it's interesting. We'll talk about her more later. She had 2 children, a son and a daughter. So somewhere in all of this is wild madness. So she loved all the fame that came along with all this. Like, she really reveled in it. People said that, like, in her home, she had her interview on Larry King, like, playing on repeat on one of her TVs, and she just enjoyed watching herself. So, that is very interesting to think
really
about.
Interesting.
She's also worth more than $5 million at this point. This is the 90s money. This is like better. It's better than today's money. So. So that's a lot of her, kind of how she got started in like the big fame stuff. The next whole section is about it all sounds pretty good so far. We haven't talked about anything.
I haven't heard anything super shocking yet. So.
It only goes downhill from here. So this is the highest high we're going to get. This is like,
now buckle up.
Yeah, we're gonna drop off a cliff here in a minute, and it's gonna get fucking rough.
Okay, so, I'm ready for the cliff. I'm really ready.
Trigger warning. Yeah, we've really climbed. We're doing good. Tyra Banks is gonna interview us right now.
We're at the top of the roller coaster. Can we see like over the edge yet? Are we?
Oh, we're about to go down hard.
Okay,
The roller coaster's about to just fall apart.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the next section, which I call shame culture. This is a gross section. Trigger warning. This is all just really bad, like spiritual abuse kind of stuff. So,
Okay.
Obviously, it's a very dark side to the shit she's doing. You don't get to just come in and belong in Remnant Fellowship.
Okay.
The way it sounds like this big welcoming thing and people are relocating, you don't get to just like show up on Sunday if you want to. Like, it's not really that type of thing. So there's a lot of expectations for the members of the group. This is where obedience comes in. Remember when we talked about obedience earlier? And
It's
we
all coming together now.
We glossed. we just slid on past it. Well, here we go. We're sliding into the wall. And her biggest things about if you wanted to belong to Remnant Fellowship, you had to look good and your children had to be well behaved.
Okay.
Obedience.
Okay.
Hard themes. So very strict obedience was expected for everyone, including children. This was a big, like, core part of the teachings at Remnant Fellowship. So the concept of this is very self-image. Like, we want to come off good to the world. We want people to desire to be part of this group. So you need to look desirable. Everything in your life needs to look desirable, which also promotes toxic positivity, which was a big thing in here. Like, you had to seem happy. You had to seem perfect. Your kids had to seem perfect. Everything had to look a certain way.
Because you are representing her brand.
That's right. You're part of the brand. You're part of the brand. You're an extension of GWEN. And she holds herself to a very certain standard. All right. So, yeah, it's interesting. There were also major themes in this group of submitting to authority. And they would do a thing they called family checkups. If they thought something was going on in your family and they wanted to investigate it, or if they thought you weren't doing something, they would call it a family checkup. And the leading members of the group would investigate your life. They also, if they needed any sort of marriage counseling, that could only be done through the church leaders. They were not allowed to go outside of that. And the way you discipline your children and discipline in general was also the church dictated how you discipline your children, because your well-behaved children is very important. Very, very important.
These poor kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
So also, when people didn't have weight loss results, she would say that they weren't truly devoted and faithful to the Lord. She would tell them they were sick and sinful. You weren't allowed to join in group functions if you weren't losing weight, or worse, if you gained weight. So there's some exclusion, there's some isolation, there's like the shunning. And now I have some direct quotes from GWEN. She says, "Stop lusting after the food and you won't binge." That's what she sounds like. She's very, very Tennessee country.
Right, yeah.
Very intense the way she speaks, too.
Like, I think I saw a little short clip of her.
She's very intense.
Yeah.
Very serious, very intense. Her delivery is very hard.
Undeniable when you're, listening to her for advice.
Yes. She says you have to lay down greed, and the fear of God is key to everything. So very fear-based, very shame. Shame culture situation. So this whole thing is really bad. So GWEN compares weight issues to when women are having weight issues, she compares it to like when men are having issues with pornography. Like she is she's using shame to be like,
wow,
it's an addiction, just like it's as bad as pornography. Like you being overweight, not necessarily,
but it's gonna form that kind of thought with eating. Like,
oh, absolutely, it's extremely unhealthy. It's a horrible thing to say to people. It's a shaming technique. Like that's her whole goal, is to make them feel ashamed of it. So she continued to become more famous. As she did this, she capitalized on her fame. She always saw opportunity. This is she's very opportunistic. She expanded her views conveniently as her fame increased, because now she's saying, like, she can help with all types of self-fulfillment through God. Like, she can cure anything, including addiction, like anything.
Wow.
Like, I can fix anything in my program. Like, it's not just your weight. So she's trying to like...
So now she has to have this church of perfect people because she has cured them all of everything.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly it. Perfect people. So she continues to very much spiritually abuse and exploit people because taking somebody's beliefs and their faith and like pulling them in and using that, people are so convicted to their beliefs and spirituality is so personal. So for somebody to use that as a weapon to like control and harm people, it's really gross. It's very sad. It's very sad.
Very, very sad.
So some more of her psycho beliefs that she started to really like, other psycho beliefs. I wrote other psycho beliefs and highlighted it. It's another section.
I like the section titles. That was one of my favorite things with your notes.
That makes me happy. Thank you. I just kind of say whatever I feel summarizes that little area, and definitely other psycho beliefs. So for a long time, GWEN was very openly against divorce. That was another big thing. She believed divorce was wrong under any circumstance.
Whoa, wait. Did she get divorced, though?
We're going to get there.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, she absolutely did get divorced. She's not a hypocrite, though. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. She's a major
fine.
gaslighter. She's, yeah.
Okay.
So she believed divorce was wrong under any circumstance, and the family unit was the most important thing. She advocated hard, even if women found themselves in abusive relationships. In this case, the women were to receive counseling at Remnant Fellowship. And this was until she herself ended up divorcing her husband after meeting the guy who played Tarzan in like a 1970s movie. So it's an actor named Joe Lara. We're going to get to him later. But we need to get to the crimes that took place around this whole situation at some point. So that would be, do you have any chart things you want to say yet? Or do you want to talk about kind of the crime, violent, terrible stuff that comes from...
The stuff that we've already mentioned?
No, these are brand new things.
Wait, what?
Yeah, we have a whole...
No, I'm asking, what do you mean? Clarify.
So...
I can talk about her chart a little bit. Is that what you're saying?
Didn't know if you were being pulled to or not.
Oh.
Since we kind of changed up our structure, this episode, this story's a little bit different because we're only covering one person. And she...
Yeah, let's talk about GWEN before Joe comes into the picture.
Okay, yeah. We're focused on GWEN and we'll talk about other people later. Let's just like look at her.
GWEN was born February 18th, 1955 in Memphis, Tennessee. And we do not have a birth time, so I pulled a noon chart, but I'm not using houses, so don't worry. Don't come for me. First thing I thought when I pulled this chart was it looks like a mixture kind of our last two episodes.
That's what you were saying, and I see that.
It just has remnants.
Good job.
Has remnants of Juana and Charles Manson chart placements.
I'm excited. I've been excited to see her chart.
So we have her sun in Aquarius and her moon in Capricorn. Now her sun in Aquarius is on the cusp. It's like at the last degree of Aquarius. It's on the cusp of Pisces. So it kind of brings in a little bit more of this spiritual, like transcendent energy to the Aquarius idealism and all of that and innovating. And we get a little bit more of that flavor of Aquarius. And then the Capricorn moon, like we talked about Capricorn energy in relation to all of this and with wanting to build something, build a big structure. I can't remember, Juana, I think, was a Capricorn, right?
Yes, she has a Capricorn sun. I think she had a Capricorn stellium.
Yeah, I remember it was a stellium, but I couldn't remember if it was her sun or her moon.
I don't remember. Mm-hmm. Her sun, Venus, and Mars, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something else, too. I think she had, like, another... I can't remember what else it was.
Yeah, and when we
something else big in there.
It was. And then the Manson Aquarius type stuff going on, and she has some Scorpio placements I'm keeping my eye on, and the North Node being in Capricorn as well. She has her South Node in Cancer, North Node in Capricorn. She has Mars in Aries, which is very, very like warrior. She's gonna fight to get what she wants. Very physical type energy. Yeah, let me come back to that. But there's so much of her wanting to use her firepower and her physicality to build what she build this kind of empire, this kind of structure that she wants for her life. And it's all in this idealistic kind of godlike spectrum of transcending and connecting to the divine, but also like having this idealistic society.
Yeah. Wow.
She has some other placements. See, I'm really like struggling to decide what I want to talk about first.
I know.
I keep scrolling up and down, like what's going on.
That's how I felt about the story aspect too, where I'm like, which thing should I talk about next? So there's so much to it, and it's so wild, and we might just go in and out of it.
Yeah, she's got some stuff. Also in Aquarius, she has Mercury retrograde, her Chiron and Pholus. So we've got some kind of like trauma and healing journey related to this Aquarius issue she has, which I think is a lot tied into her struggling with weight problems in the past, and it going to an extreme, where when Pholus is there, it can make you take things to an extreme.
So I do have a theory about now looking at this being kind of like her healing place too. I feel like she found extra accountability for her own weight experience through having a group and being in the middle of it, and like empowering herself to stay on top of it and like be, you know, the figure of it and like the poster child of it. But it's like, if she hadn't had that, she may have regained her own weight. Like if she didn't have this big system around her, like it's almost like she needed that amount of structure to keep her own self in a place that she felt good about her weight and physical self. And
yeah, this is very personal for her with Chiron being involved. This is something where your Chiron journey kind of goes like this. It goes where you're young and you're living life, and then all of a sudden it feels kind of like you're hit like out of nowhere with some like really horrible thing. Like you're really vulnerable, and it's not anything that's your fault, but like life really got you down in some kind of way. And then you move through life and you start to process it, you start to heal it, and then you start to in turn help other people heal with similar issues. So I see how with Chiron being there, I think it makes a lot of sense because she's helping herself and in turn wanting to help others, and having it be an Aquarius, this is you doing it on a mass scale.
And then it's like with that exaggerated energy, she's taking it way too far in all the ways.
Yeah,
like, too
and
far
this is another thing that can be bad with Aquarius energy, not getting like checked on, like because they're shooting for this ideal, and it's too it's not always realistic, especially when it's something so personal for people. It's not like, you know, we're organizing the file folders. Like, we're not coming up with the best system to organize all the file folders. These are people.
Yeah. So what's interesting is everything we've talked about so far is basically GWEN not being challenged by anybody, not kept in check at all.
Yeah.
And that's what happens here. So I'm glad you said that, because the next section of the story is the first time anybody is putting her under scrutiny, under a microscope, checking her out. And that's when she becomes more warrior and defensive. So I don't think she gets into this warrior energy until this phase of the story where we get into a more violent theme and the way she handled that on a very public scale.
Wow.
So we might just go ahead and jump into the next.
Oh, let me say a couple more things. I want to finish what I wrote.
Oh, awesome.
So with the biochemistry thing was the next thing I was going to say is I didn't think about that, but now that you mention it, the way her Scorpio placements line up, it does make sense for her to be studying and scrutinizing something on like a microchemical, microbiological level. She's got Lilith, Juno, and Saturn in Scorpio. So a lot of Scorpio is wanting to figure out how things work. Looking at things like really close up, really detailed, like getting almost looking to like the sub layer of what is happening. It's very it makes a lot of sense for why she kind of got her foundation there with Saturn. It probably felt empowering for her with Lilith there, and it's something that she was committed to. I mean, she went to school for this for a long time, so I think it really did light up those Scorpio placements for her very well. Scorpio placements like this can make her very devoted and determined, very detail oriented, wanting to figure everything out. Her life structure would be based on this, like I said, and it can come off kind of fierce too. Like she's really like wanting to kind of take the situation by the horns or whatever. Like with Lilith, like you're almost manipulating things back into your favor. Wherever Lilith is on your chart.
That's so accurate.
There also will be some like subtle sexual empowerment undertones to I think everything she does in life, and I was kind of wondering about that with it being a religious thing and like a body focused thing as a woman. I'm really curious how that kind of went, because it's not like I haven't seen her dressed super conservative either, so I don't know.
Right, like she definitely didn't like hide her arms, like she wore spaghetti straps. She didn't dress provocative by any means, so she didn't dress conservative. She was
you would think with the other types of rules she put in place, she would maybe.
You know who she dresses similar to? That's a very public figure, is like Michelle Obama, where it's like classy, but she's showing her arms and she's showing that she has a nice physique and a nice figure, but not in a provocative way. It's just like, it's still professional, but it's showing, she cares what she looks like. Also, her hair is so jacked up to Jesus, y'all. That's that is a Southern saying where they will say, you know, jack it up to Jesus, and you're talking about how big your hair is.
I wish we knew her ascendant so I could talk about her hair.
Her hair is huge.
The only thing I could say, like, her Venus is in Capricorn on her moon. Like, maybe she valued really building up her hair, like a corporate building.
My God! It was its own corporate building. It's a skyscraper of hair. It's very.
That's kind of silly, but yeah.
No, that's really funny. I like it.
But yeah, her moon is in Capricorn. That's the moon of wanting to build something. It also can make her feelings a little bit more like harder to tap into. Like she's got to really work to figure out how she's feeling. So if she might have a little bit of a harder time really being as empathetic as you would hope someone in that position would be. That's why I'm going to say that. Especially in combination with some of these other placements she has. Something else interesting I noticed is she's got Neptune retrograde in Libra. It is square to that Chiron placement that I was talking about. So this is really fitting together because Neptune can show how you perceive the world, and it's kind of like illusionary at times, you know. It can show your worldview, and with it in Libra about appearances, and it's retrograde, so there's a little bit like it's not working as effectively as it might. It's working in a different way. I don't like the word effectively, but
it's like more internalized.
It's more internalized and slower paced. So Neptune and Libra retrograde can get really transfixed by appearances and being appeasing and looking pleasant, looking
looks are
pleasing.
Very important. Yeah.
So
how things look.
I think it makes a lot of sense on her chart when we see this. And then opposite this placement is the Mars in Aries. So it's connected with her recognizing, oh, well, I can lean away from this Neptune energy that doesn't feel good if I lean into my Mars energy of like being active.
Doing something about it, like taking action. Yeah, absolutely.
She also has Vesta in Gemini, which I think is interesting for her. It shows that her soul devotion, like what she puts her deepest value in, is like this idea of like common sense and like being practical but adaptable. Like this is common sense in the way where it's really just whatever is normalized by society, and her like, oh well, everybody should know like this is how things work out. You know, it's kind of like it's like based on social cues, like this kind of mentality, and it's how people with Gemini placements also have that wit. And like it's like, well, of course, this is how we think. Like this is.
We're about to see a shit ton of that.
It's
on display for the rest of the story of how she handles PR issues, how she speaks to the media, the entire. Yeah, that's gonna come. So hold on to that, everybody, because this is gonna come into play huge as we progress through the story. We've already seen it a lot, but it's going to. Yeah, that's a big theme.
Yeah, this is also very, like, she's got the Aquarius side, too, so she's able to think big picture about all of this. So I see, like, the PR coming through with her Aquarius placements, and then also on the Gemini level, where she really values, like, that person-to-person conversation, interaction, and that common sense, kind of like I said, and this is like, deep value in small-scale socializing. Like, she wants the word of mouth to, like, be great. Like I feel like this is something that's going to be really important to her. This is like small level interacting, like greet the neighbors around town and stuff like that. Like having a chat, like gossiping, like all of that. She's going to really want it to be on point because she's going to really care about that. And like I said, her Mercury is in Aquarius, so she's very focused on ideals and figuring out the best plan for everyone. I think that's like a little bit more large scale, but she has these values on the small scale, so it's interesting to see how that plays out. Pallas is in Sagittarius, where I was thinking about how she grew up in an even more strict kind of religious area, so it's kind of like where she makes her decisions at like a core level. So when she has to strategize for something or make a decision that's very difficult, it's going to come down to this kind of spiritual element for her. Yeah. It's also going to have her make the choice that feels like it is going to give her the most growth on her journey in life. You know, like she's basing these decisions in a very Sagittarius way. Like what's going to be the best adventure for me moving forward, kind of decision making when it really comes down to it. Okay, then I was also looking at her Jupiter conjunct Uranus. They're both retrograde in Cancer. It's kind of like her opportunity is really sudden and like sporadic, like something like suddenly happens and then she'll get like this burst of luck or like growth or expansion, because it's also tied to that unexpected element of Uranus and how things can come up in like kind of a chaotic, like random, weird way. And it can be slower, so I kind of feel like it wasn't something that happened early in life, is what I had written. It seems like she probably hit more growth a little bit later on, with what she wanted to have happen, due to past issues, because it's so close to the South Node. It's in the same sign as the South Node. Furthermore, with her South Node being in Cancer, that's a lot of that nurturing, mothering type energy. And as we see her Moon and her Venus and Ceres are already in Capricorn. They're already in a place that is not as empathetic and nurturing as they would typically be in other signs. So it's showing her moving more into that space of being less maternal and nurturing as she moves through life. Yeah. And that's really going to resonate with her because her Moon is there and her Venus is there and her Ceres is there. She's going to feel really good about moving into a more strict, rigid, disciplined type space. I really see this with the children involved as well because of like the Jupiter aspect, and it's a very like obedience focused direction for her life.
And what's interesting, you said, it's later in her life path. Her children are basically fully grown at the point that she starts to become this very rigid disciplinarian. Like, it's easy to have well-behaved fucking children when they're adults. You know what I mean? But she's
did you forget what it was like when they were younger?
Because then she's telling these people with toddlers that their toddlers can't be toddlers. And we're going to get into this. And it's brutal. It's not good. So trigger warning for everyone. This is GWEN advocating violence is this section.
Okay.
So GWEN was well known to teach parents how to discipline their children, and her recommendations were very physical. So she recommended hitting children with items like glue sticks, which is an odd choice, wooden spoons, which is like the 1950s kind of shit, awful, and other items, just random stuff to teach them how to obey. That was without any thought. She didn't want them to have time to think. Like, it was kind of a like basically conditioning, like like how you would.
I was looking for that word.
Yep, very much conditioning. She also believed in locking them in a room or a closet with only a Bible for long periods of time.
What if they aren't old enough to read? I guess God will speak to them.
Exactly. Yes. See, now you're getting it. Now you get it. We've addressed that question, and we will move forward because that is the answer. So she also taught them that if they did anything other than what their parents told them to do, that they deserved the physical punishment that came along with it.
Wow. You
break the rules, so you get punished. That's on you.
Okay.
That was very much the way she would deliver that as well. Like, very detached, kind of a cold, feels very Capricorn, stern, strict.
And it's awful. Children do not have the capability of comprehending that.
Are you ready for a direct quote that's going to make you cringe?
Oh, no. Yeah.
And I'm going to say it in her southerny voice, so it's going to be even better.
Perfect.
Okay. The way you show God you are answering to Him is through obeying your own God. And no one playing around like that can ever go to heaven. So you will only live a few years on earth, and then you will have a horrible afterlife. If you don't obey mommy and daddy on the first try, you will be taken out, and you will be very, very sorry.
Taken out?
I think she means like taken out somewhere,
like
taken outside.
Okay.
Like, whoa! No, it's a big thing. And like, parents will say, like, "Do you want to go? I'm gonna take you outside. I'm gonna take you to the bathroom. Like, I'm gonna take you somewhere." But yeah, she said. She also said, you have to obey your mother and father on the first time. If you obey on the second or third time, you are being your own God. So she's basically like, it gets worse. So. Just the stuff she says. These are direct quotes of how she spoke. I tried to deliver it in the manner she speaks too. Like, she has a really specific. I listened to her talk a lot.
You did.
That's my impersonation. Thank you, everyone. I do voiceover work on the side.
Lovely performance.
Thank you. I worked really hard to practice. So she felt that physical punishment was necessary, especially for strong-willed children. That's how she described them. Strong-willed children. There are actually phone recordings that were released of her on the phone with members who were telling stories of issues they'd had with their children, and her responses to it were pretty hideous. It was pretty rough. You can listen to those if you would like to, but it's just disturbing to hear somebody hearing a story of a parent like repeatedly hitting their child until the child finally gave up and gave in, and her saying like praise God and all this about it, and like
it's horrible.
Really like commending them for that style of parenting. Like, she advocated for this big time, like very, very big time, and there's recordings of it which she said were altered and fake, and in her when she was talking to the press about it. That tape has been altered. Like, she is.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, she gets so warrior defensive in it. It's really. She also said, if your children are not scared to get a spanking, that you aren't spanking them. That they should be scared. She said kids don't need self-esteem. They need God-esteem.
What?
She also said, we are spoiling these kids. We are ruining them by letting them think about themselves at all. And that's
horrible.
Just the beginning. Major, major, extreme trigger warning for the next part. We're going to talk about some members of Remnant Fellowship.
Okay.
And a major controversy. This is actually the thing that put her under scrutiny for all this child stuff. Okay. Nobody knew anything about this until a major, major incident happened.
Child stuff, child abuse.
Major child stuff, major child abuse, horrible, very sad. So trigger warning. This definitely put GWEN under a microscope for the very first time since she started Remnant Fellowship. So that is the positive. So the rest is negative. This is awful. So we're going to talk about Joseph and Sonia Smith. They ended up being liable for their 8-year-old son, who was also named Joseph. He wasn't, but spelled different than his dad, so he's not actually Joseph Jr. technically when the spelling's different, but it's confusing because they're both named Joseph. But little Joseph, they were charged with his death. They routinely disciplined their son by beating him with the items that GWEN suggested: glue sticks, belts, heated coat hangers, which is really disturbing, like a wire hanger, like branding, basically. That's super fucked up. Locking them in confined spaces for extended periods of time, tying their hands with rope. Mrs. Smith told the police that she normally gave the children their whippings in increments of 10 blows each, that Joseph had gotten several of those whipping sessions on the day of his death. So the police report said that the Smiths locked their 8-year-old son Joseph in his room to pray to a picture of Jesus on the ceiling, and then in a closet for days and even weeks at a time. So this is really disturbing. This is like a 3rd grader. Horrible. This is awful. He was given only a bucket for a toilet, and an older son sometimes held Joseph down while his parents beat him with these items. So they're involving other children in the household in the punishment of a sibling. So this creates a really disturbing dynamic for everybody. It's very confusing for the child participating at the instruction of their parents, and then the sibling. It makes the sibling dynamic very strange. There's so many awful repercussions of abuse in general, but when a sibling becomes involved as like on the side of the parents, it really makes the dynamic extra confusing for all of the children involved, like to witness and be a part of. And it's very, very disturbing stuff here. So during the day on October 8th, 2003, Joseph Sr., the father, disciplined his 8-year-old son, little Joseph, several times, like we said, beating him repeatedly. County medical examiners concluded that he died of a result of acute and chronic abuse, so ongoing long-term abuse. His little body could not sustain that. Like, he's 8. He's like a baby. His body was so badly bruised. That's another coroner report. Like, this was not from one beating. This was regular, repeated, brutal, intense beatings, and his parents showed absolutely no remorse at all. Completely flat. They're also really defensive about their religion when they're asked about it. They felt very convicted that they were just doing what they were supposed to do. Like, they really didn't understand, like the death happened, but it felt like they were so detached from the death of their child, like kind of justifying it, being like, but we're doing God's will here. Like, they kind of, it was a very strange detachment, very upsetting. The members of Remnant Church actually paid for their defense. So that says a lot.
So they backed them up.
The church paid for their defense. Oh, absolutely. But of course they received those felony murder charges. They were sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years for this crime. And so that's a lot. Remnant Fellowship had a lot of focus, obviously, in their teaching on this discipline. A direct quote from GWEN. Our good Lord says, do not spare the rod, during an interview when she was asked about this. That's how she defended it. She defended this in interviews with like Larry King, with like big name. Like she is absolutely defending it with the Bible as much as she can. This child was also starved and given the absolute minimum amount of food, too. This was common with pretty much everyone. Like, you're given just enough food to make your stomach stop growling. So they only, like, parents would only feed their kids in this family if they could hear their stomachs growling. Like, you had to audibly hear your child's stomach growling before they would be allowed food, because they have to be hungry. Can't just eat when you're not hungry. That is gluttonous. Sinful.
Right. I almost forgot about the dietary plan.
Yeah. That's also being used as an abuse as an abuse tactic for small developing children who are literally hungry 24/7. Like, kids are always hungry. They are always growing. They need sustenance, and they know how to intuitively eat. Like, kids really do know that. Like, we don't get all screwed up with that till later in life, it seems.
Right.
But kids know how to listen to their body, and they understand their hunger signals. So to do this to a child is really terrible.
And there's no way she didn't know better the education she had at that time.
Would you like to hear how she defended this when questioned about this publicly? Yep. This is a direct quote.
Yep.
Eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full is required and is suggested by the Surgeon General. It is not child abuse. Direct quote.
Pretty sure the Surgeon General didn't say to listen for your children's stomachs to growl and then only feed them small amounts until you don't hear it. Yeah. Because also that noise, like your stomach makes noises, it doesn't necessarily mean...
It could mean you're digesting. It doesn't always, like, audible stomach noises don't always mean you're hungry.
Like, some people might not have audible stomach noises and they're very hungry. Like, it's not, it makes no sense.
Yeah, makes no sense. Again, she knows
the science behind it.
She knows better, which is
you're
just where it gets weird. So, Remnant Fellowship actually continues to publicly support the Smiths. They still have a website devoted to their innocence, and it's all connected to Remnant Fellowship. Like, it's ran by them.
Okay.
So you can still find it. I can't remember if it's like Smiths Are Innocent, probably .net or some shit. I don't know. Maybe we could find it and link it. Does anybody care? Nobody fucking cares. They don't want to see this.
I don't know if I want to go look at it.
Trash. Nobody wants it. Don't visit that website. We're not giving it any foot traffic because it's gross. So that is the rest of GWEN. Then we will get into her, what I've called Tarzan marriage.
Yes, tell me about Tarzan marriage.
You want to keep going?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm
letting you guys.
I'll go ahead and tell his chart a little bit because I didn't pull it, and I probably won't get super deep into it.
Okay.
His chart, he's born October 2nd, 1962. He is a Libra sun
that
and
does not surprise
Scorpio moon conjunct Venus. They both have moon conjunct Venus.
Ooh.
Very interesting, very interesting.
He just feels like a Libra, and it's funny. If I had to guess any sign for him, I would have guessed probably Leo or a Libra would feel like fitting. I wonder. Yeah,
so, I mean, it's a pretty interesting combo for sure. They both have Saturn in... Oh, no. Never mind. He has Saturn in Aquarius with his South Node and Pholus also in Aquarius. He's got some interesting situation happening over in Leo.
Okay, there we go.
With the North Node being in Leo, Ceres being in Leo, Juno and Vesta all in Leo. The publicity is definitely not an issue for him.
No, he's into it.
I don't know what else to say. But that is basically his chart. He has Mars in Cancer. You can keep that in mind as well.
Wah, wah. Yeah, he's an interesting... I'll get into it. I still don't quite know how... I've struggled to even talk about this guy, so it's so interesting. We'll see if anything else comes up.
I kind of wonder if they were really loyal to each other or not, because they have Juno squared Juno. I'm kind of curious how this marriage, it feels like that'd be a stressful marriage aspect.
I have a lot of opinions, so
okay.
I do kind of sprinkle them throughout this section. This is a weird...
As you do.
This is a weird detour for real. Like, I feel like this story has so many, like, concentrated themes. Like, we talked about where she built this whole thing and, like, got all this education. And then super violent, like, fucked up shit. And now it's like, here's how she's romantic. Here's her romantic life, which is totally different.
Give me a little snippet.
It's so different from everything else. So shit keeps being weird. We meet Joe Lara. So when he was young, a little bit about his background. His mother married a wealthy CEO. So again, old money. But he lucked into it. So he was the CEO of Wells Fargo Bank. So that was his stepdad when he was a kid. He suddenly gets married into this family that has all this wealth. So he grew up in Newport Beach, California, which is like super fucking bougie. His stepdad owned a lot of lavish things. They had a private plane. Joe had his own race cars and like really enjoyed all these lavish fun things he got to do. He was really kind of like adrenaline driven. He did a lot. He loved driving the race cars and kind of flying planes, and he learned how to do that at a young age, and he loved all that kind of shit. Also, this kid is fucking spoiled and entitled suddenly. So that's a new thing. And as an adult, he was said to be kind of a mooch. So he dated older women most of the time that could provide for him. So he liked his women to spoil him. GWEN was a very wealthy woman. And I feel like that was the main attraction to this relationship. She had the wealth and the fame and the notoriety and this whole thing. And it's kind of like he jumped on the train. So he kind of had he went for sugar mamas, sort of. He always lived with the women he dated too. So that was like, he would just move in, kind of mooch off of them. He never had his own thing in his own place where they would see each other. He would just be like, we're dating. I'm moving right on in. So
here I come.
It's kind of weird. There's one woman that he dated for quite a while, and this is an interesting relationship. He actually, they had a tumultuous relationship. She kind of got sick of his bullshit and being a mooch, and she bought him a Harley Davidson, and then she set it on fire, because she was when she was mad at him,
wow,
so he had some really rough breakups. They weren't
regular breakups.
Yeah, it's almost like get the fuck out. They were throwing his shit on the porch and lighting it on fire. That was kind of his breakups. And when that happened, he ended up moving into this trailer in the desert for a while, and all he did out there was play in his race cars, and he kind of lived fun fantasy life. He seems like a fuck up. He likes to fuck off. He likes to fuck around. It's funny because he was also had a successful acting career.
Right, so, having that Mars in Cancer kind of makes me feel he's not motivated definitely not when Mars is in its sign of Aries she has. She's going and motivated. He's kind of have to go with how he's feeling and flow with that, and maybe nothing will really happen, maybe something will. It's definitely not the most proactive. Yeah, he feels he's drifting. He's drifting along, kind of doing shit. As things kind of shuffle around, he's oh, okay, well, I guess I'll go do this now. At one point, he had a new girlfriend. He moved to Nashville with her, which is how he got in the area where GWEN was. So this is how they kind of ended up in the same place after his whole Tarzan and fucking desert lifestyle. So he wanted to pursue a career as a country music singer. Okay. And he met GWEN. Libra placements can be good singers. Great singers. Great music placements. That Mercury retrograde in Libra, I'm really keep looking up for that. But
go ahead. Interesting. So he was doing some networking, trying to get out, meet people, get his name out there, and he ended up going to Remnant Fellowship, with people, because lots of famous people were going to this shit.
Okay.
And that's how he met GWEN.
Gotcha.
Who was actually still married at the time to her husband, David Shamblin. And not long after the two met, GWEN files for divorce after being married to her husband for 40 years and strongly speaking out against how wrong divorce was. She posted her new views on divorce and marriage, on her website, and she used the Bible, of course, to justify her new views always. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about my personal take on their relationship because I watched videos of them together. They did lots of video documentary things. They really loved being on camera, both of them. Loved the spotlight. So they did a lot of that together. I think that was like a bonding space for them.
That's his north node, you know? Like, it's very... It makes a lot of sense for both of them. It helps her build her empire where her north node is, and he gets get to be the center of attention.
He loves it because he's not like really involved in the church or the teachings or anything, but he's just relishing in the fame and the spotlight. Their relationship is kind of cringy to observe, in my opinion. I'd love to see, I want to like watch a clip of their stuff together and just see your face. Like, I just want to see your facial visible reaction.
My reaction. We'll do a react video.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I really want to see it. So the clips I saw of their engagement and wedding, like they filmed both things. Like their engagement was filmed. Like how he proposed, like.
Because everything
is all a big show.
It's a show. Very
grandiose. It's a whole situation, and it really grossed me out. Just like the vibe is very strange. And it's also strange that Joe's not religious, like at all. So I mentioned he's not really involved in the cult, but he's like arm candy.
He can just reflect whatever she's doing. He's a Libra. Like, I'll just be here and...
A lot of people said that they felt like the entire time he was acting, like he was playing a part. Like he was playing a role in the movie of his life. And like, because it feels really forced. Like, it's strange to see. It definitely feels like they're putting on this show for everybody. He like carries her around and stuff. And like, there's one little segment where he's like, doing these little dance moves and like doing like a weird jazz hands, and he's like really like looking at the camera, and like it's silly and like over the top. It's not like a couple being silly together. It's like him solo sillying to the camera only. Like and she just happens to be there as a prop to like pick up and carry around and stuff. Like it's very weird. They had a YouTube series called Life with Gwen and Joe. We're gonna watch it. That's what we're gonna do. Let's do a watch along with Patreon.
Okay.
I would love to do that. It would be so fun.
I need to see what these videos are like.
So they loved making videos of like spiritually stuff too, they could use for Remnant Fellowship. So one that they loved vacationing so much. Like people said that when Gwen started her relationship with Joe, she was not spending as much time in the church. This is when Elizabeth started stepping up, taking over a lot of things, because Gwen was like traveling and living this new kind of life where she wasn't before. She was so structured and in so much control, and it's like Joe kind of freed her up and made her feel more spontaneous. It's like he brought that out in her, where they went on all these vacations, but they would do a segment like Seeking God on Vacation. So they like capitalized on what they were doing.
Right off that whole trip.
Oh my God, you're right. Tax write-off.
I don't know where the line is. Is this a business or like a religious group? So it's
both. It's both. She's profiting because the weight down workshops were their own thing, and the church was like a thing that was started after the fact.
I guess I'm wondering, when she files taxes, what
does she file taxes?
Is this like a religious organization? Because that's different than like a regular.
I guarantee she's doing it as like, because they don't pay taxes. That's like a non-profit.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing. I haven't seen her tax paperwork. We're going to get a forensic, what are they called? Accountant, a forensic accountant.
You know, it's tax season. It's on my mind. It really got me thinking about that.
That's it. We should look it up. We should, let's see, if you're an accountant and you have worked with Gwen Shamblin, we want to talk to you. Reach out to us in the comments. Be
God.
It's me. I'm the person that you are trying to talk to.
I guess that would be public record, technically, right? So
her taxes should be public record, maybe. I don't know. But the members of her group also noticed she wasn't spending as much time there. You know what I mean? Like, they're not... And it rubbed people the wrong way. She also did another thing where she denied the Holy Trinity, like the Father, Son, Holy Spirit thing.
Really?
Which is like a core foundational Christian beliefs. And she rebelled against that at one point. So that was like a big thing. It was like a shift in her followers. So it's kind of, you're seeing it kind of some things to start to shatter just a little bit. Some cracks in the foundation, I guess, if you will. And also, Joe had this baby mama drama that was extremely public with his ex. So, he had a young child. There was a vicious custody battle. His attorneys were, of course, paid for by Remnant Fellowship because that's how it goes. Mm-hmm. His baby mama, Natasha, who was a former Miss Yugoslavia, I believe she competed in Miss World, like Miss Universe type competition. She's beautiful. She was concerned about the cult stuff, like a good parent, when he would have custody of their child. She did not like the way they disciplined, the way they treated children. She didn't like the way her child came back to her after, and she was very concerned, and so that's what prompted this custody thing. She wasn't doing it just to be like a bitchy ex-wife or something, you know?
She was worried.
She was genuinely concerned for the welfare of her child being a part of this group, and then like the child abuse thing and the death had already happened.
Right.
Like that was public knowledge. Like she's fully aware of this environment not being safe for her child, and I think she did the responsible thing as a parent. And some of the clips, I remember seeing these like on the news and stuff because they made the news where Joe was slandering her to the media. So like TMZ type stuff. Really? Where he's looking in the camera like saying things like, you're sick. You're a sick person. You're a sick woman. Like saying all this like, and he accused her of major child abuse.
Wow.
And he had these lawyers to kind of back him up and all this stuff. And it was a really nasty thing that was going on because she was, of course, not guilty of any of those things. But that was the weird control. It was a mess. It was a shit show.
If you are in Northwest Arkansas and looking for affordably priced photography and videography services, then you should definitely reach out to Nice NWA.
Yes, you should.
With photo sessions starting at $100, now is a great time to update your company's headshots, get graduation photos, new family pictures, and more. Looking for video work instead?
Yes, videos start at just $300 and are a great way to boost your marketing engagement online with current customers and potential new customers. It's also a great way to create highlight reels of your next event or just to tell your story in an exciting and creative way. NICE is not just locally owned and operated, but is also a certified minority and veteran-owned business that started right here in Northwest Arkansas in 2017.
So, go check them out on Facebook or on Instagram at Nice NWA or by visiting their website at nicenwa.com.
You can see some clips of him talking to the media, and it's really disturbing. He gets super close to the camera and starts saying, like, hateful things to her, to the media.
Crazy stuff.
So it's like really, it's gross. So that's kind of Joe in his living state. Mm-hmm. So that, because, spoiler alert, these people die next. So I'll just keep going.
Tell us about the death because I have death chart.
Oh, yay. Okay, because they died at the same time. So
this is fascinating.
Tarzan husband Joe decided to use his expired pilot's license to fly a big group of remnant members to a Trump rally. So they're trying to go.
So there's other church members on this flight.
Yes, there are 7 passengers in total.
Okay.
But he's obviously not a great pilot. GWEN, Joe, and 5 leaders of Remnant Fellowship died on May 29th, 2021. It has not even been a full calendar year yet from when we were recording this podcast that they died in this plane crash. So it landed in a lake. All 7 passengers died in the crash, so it was fatal for everybody. One of the passengers was actually GWEN's son-in-law. So I believe this was Elizabeth's husband because his last name is Hannah and she is Elizabeth Shamblin Hannah. Mm-hmm. So basically her whole family dies in this plane crash. That's pretty rough. So definitely my heart goes out to the family members who lost.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's absolutely sad. We don't ever want to make light of the loss that people have experienced. Regardless of what GWEN did while she was here, like, you know, she was a mother. There are people who did love her, and you know, I feel bad for them.
There's still a lot of pain in losing someone.
Especially like this tragic, where a whole group of people that you are close to that feel like family. At least this was a small group. This is a very small, tight-knit group. So to lose 7 members, like your leading members of your congregation, like that's going to affect everybody down, like a whole little community. Like everybody is grieving from this. So we don't ever want to minimize that, regardless of Gwen being a questionable human. It doesn't matter. This is sad for the people who lost a loved one. So the circumstances of the crash, it was referred to as like rough conditions of the weather was like a big part of it. They called it instrument meteorological conditions, which is just too fancy for me. It's shitty weather. It was overcast. There was only a visibility of about 10 miles. So Joe Lara did hold a commercial pilot certificate. It's just wasn't super recent, I guess. He was reissued his license in 2019, November 2019. So it's, I don't know, there's some sketchiness around the validity of getting it renewed. Okay. That's a whole like deep cut bunch of shit that I was like, I'm not going to go into that. You can look it up if you want to. There's some discrepancies in like how valid was his license? How did he actually go through the training required to get this license? Like, how was it obtained? There's some sketchiness going on around it. But after takeoff, the radar returns show that the plane made a series of heading changes and several climbs and descents. So before entering their like steep descent and the impact, they landed in a shallow section of Percy Priest Lake. So it was only about 2 to 8 feet deep. So there's not much water to like.
Okay.
Yeah, they're crashing on land pretty much. Like in a puddle. Like from that, when you consider falling out of the sky, it's like jumping in a puddle, you know? It's not going to break your ball at all. So that's, So Gwen is now deceased. Joe is now deceased. We're going to talk about the money if you want to real quick, or do you want to jump into the
Let's do the death chart since we've got that going.
Cool.
We have a lot of people dying on this flight. You know, I think it would be more like the other kind of death charts we've had in the past. If it was only one person, like if it was just Gwen, this was like
7 people.
Yeah, this is several people. So for the way this to line up, it's probably going to hit all of their charts in really intense ways, rather than like only hers. So I think the way this would line up energetically and planetarily would be really fascinating to see like all of their charts, but we won't do all of that today.
Yeah, we don't need to go that deep.
We do not need to. So on Gwen's chart with the death time, she has a lunar return.
Oh, wow.
So she has the moon coming back around, and that's the one that I think is kind of the most impressive, honestly, because the moon moves so quickly. So this had to line up where the moon was going to, 2 days out of every month. It's
it's a small window.
It's a small window of time. So for her to have a lunar return, I think does hit her pretty strong. And then she's got, let's see. I have houses for the death time approximately, but I don't have houses for them, obviously. So there's a chance that her son may have been in the 8th house on the transit chart, but we don't have an exact time. So it's close. Then when we move over to Joe, and I also, and you said Joe was flying the plane?
Yes.
So I kind of think that his actions will be, oh my God.
What do you see?
I was like, I bet the chart's going to show something with his actions, like being intense, like related to the charts, because it's like his actions played into how they all died. Yeah. And he has a Mars return.
Oh, shit.
He has Mars conjunct Mars.
Okay.
So that's literally the action you're taking in life.
Wow.
He has almost an exact Mars return as they died.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
That's very interesting. Okay, I kind of spooked myself there. So, any other returns for Joe? Jupiter return for Joe. Saturn return for Joe. Yeah, this is more intense for him. I think it's his, since it's kind of his fault.
Yeah.
Mm.
And with the weather conditions, don't necessarily know that like fault.
I shouldn't say it that
he's
way.
responsible for it as the person who was in charge of.
I shouldn't say it's his fault. That was not.
I mean,
the best
I'm sure he felt like it was. You know what I mean? Like he's feeling that in the moment of like trying to say like it's on me to fix it, save us. I'm responsible for all these lives now. Like you're responsible from the moment you get behind the wheel of anything. Like if you have a car full of people, you drive a bus of kids, you're responsible for every life on that thing. And so I feel like responsibility maybe is a better way to put it. Because if a bus driver wrecks a bus, it's like it's his fault.
If the weather is bad, it's like
you're responsible for it. It's they're kind of the same thing, but not same but different. You know,
right.
Language.
So we have a lot of returns for him. It's really interesting. On the day of, the sun was in Gemini on the North Node, and the moon was in Capricorn on Pluto. So we do see that like intensity of Pluto and death and change and all of that. And then it's kind of like a fate type of day when the sun is on the North Node. So let me see about the houses with that chart for him.
Yeah, if anything else
his Jupiter return may have been in the 8th house on the transit chart as well. Definitely when like near the crash. But the ascendant was in Leo as they died, which is where he has that huge stellium in his North Node. So more fated events for sure for him. That Mars transit return.
His return,
is still freaking me out.
That's interesting. It's freaking you out. I've never heard you say that. I've never heard you say that before. So
sometimes I'll get it in readings because I'll just start talking and just channeling what I'm going to say, and I don't do that very much on the podcast, and then it always freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah, these
in a good way.
These are interesting characters, and I think there's so much we don't know that you're able to kind of get in that space more of the channeling. Like we don't have a lot of details since no one survived. No one can say what happened leading up and like right before and like what it was like, and it's different with other cases where there are at least some people who witnessed things who can tell us the details, but not in this case. Everybody is deceased that was on the, like, that had that information and those details. So, so interesting.
One other interesting thing is for the time and day of their crash, the midheaven was on Uranus in Taurus. So you've got this extra element of it being known for this like crazy, unexpected event. Yeah,
the ending of it all is what's so... Everything about this story is wild, even the ending. Like...
Every stage of it. And I think you see that a lot with the way her Jupiter is conjunct Uranus. We've got these like sudden like bursts of her journey, like totally like chaotic, kind of unexpected, strange.
And it's like publicity related. It's like unexpected publicity all throughout her life in all these different ways, whether it's like because her weight down workshop exploded, or just because of this big controversial death of a member's child, or if it's about her death that was super dramatic, or her marriage to Tarzan. Like even that had its own like showiness and
all of it
controversy. Like it's always, that's what seems to...
Right. When we were summarizing the story a minute ago, or earlier to Haven, like it was this and this and this and this.
She was like, that's a lot.
Also, while I'm looking at it, that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is where the Mars return is for him on the charts. So his actions did like deliberately factor into the way that her life plays out that way while they were living, but definitely when they passed, because it was that return coming over.
That's so much. That's so much.
Well, that was fun.
Are you ready to talk about her taxes now? Oh, we have one final section. It's all about
the
money.
estate.
The estate.
Yeah, I gotta know.
So we all know that Gwen Shamblin was worth a ton of money. Mm-hmm. Okay. So her husband passed away. What happens to her estate? And this whole thing is interesting. So her will left everything to her 2 kids and nothing to her ministry, which she said the opposite in interviews.
Oh, I'm sure.
They would say, well, what happens to Remnant when Gwen Shamblin's not here? And she was like, it's all going, like, she claimed it would all be going right back into the ministry. Like that, she said that many times, probably, but when she actually died, it all went to her 2 children. Absolutely nothing to her ministry. She did donate the property and the building of Remnant Fellowship and her publishing rights for her We Done workshops and all of that, but nothing else. So they get this like 40 acres of land. They get the building where they're all meeting, and they have the rights to sell her diet program. Okay. That's it.
Okay.
So that's interesting. But while she, like I said, while she was alive, she actually claimed half her assets would be left to the church. So 50% to the church, and then the other 50% would be divided between her 2 kids.
Okay.
So we're going to talk a little bit about Elizabeth for a second and kind of shed some light back her direction. So Gwen had been really grooming Elizabeth for a long time to kind of take this over, especially once she married Joe and started going all these vacations.
She wanted to go have her fun times.
Yes, she needed somebody to like take it over. Elizabeth is still leading the cult to this day.
Okay.
And her son, Michael, so we haven't talked about him really at all. He's not like the face, which is so interesting because when you think of like, he's actually the older sibling, and most of the time, like the oldest male son, their firstborn male child or your firstborn son is going to take over whatever. That's how it is in like the, what is it? I want to say royalty. That's how it is in the royal family. Like the firstborn male is the one that's taking everything over. Like that's the natural heir. So it's funny. It's not the way it works here. I think Gwen herself is a female leader.
She wanted to reflect that onto her daughter. I think.
Yes.
Projected onto her daughter.
Or saw her daughter only as an extension of her, you know, instead of as an individual. Like saw her daughter as like, you're an extension of me and you're going to...
Like it needs to be her.
And like I said, Elizabeth was a fantastic speaker. Like, I honestly think she is a more compelling speaker than Gwen Shamblin, which is kind of terrifying, but it's captivating to watch her speak. I actually watched a whole thing where she was speaking about her mother, trying to almost like defend her, because Gwen was still alive at the time. So it seems like they had a really close relationship. It's very interesting. But I feel bad for her son. He's been MIA kind of like since all of this happened, which can you imagine like your family dying in this plane crash and having all this controversy and all these things happening? Like it's got to be a lot to handle and deal with and process. So that's like a sad thing. Like grief is really tough for everybody. There have been reports that there have been issues with addiction. My heart really goes out to him. I have no idea like how substantiated these reports are by any means, but it is very sad that you've seen, you know, obviously Elizabeth stepping up and taking over and taking it all on. And then you have the other child who is very much isolated, I think, by this whole experience and this whole thing. Like it does not seem to be an active part of it in the way that Elizabeth is. I don't really know when he was younger what it was like, but as an adult, it seems like he's not like struggling potentially to deal with all this, which who wouldn't? That's awful. So definitely thoughts go out to him wherever he is now. It's awful. So right before Gwen died, this is kind of ironic. It's kind of interesting. She was working on a new project. It was a 9-part series about greed. So how greed is bad. As she
9-part series.
Yeah. She had a lot to say.
It's a lot to say about greed.
Especially someone like her who really her entire life was kind of fueled by this greedy aspect to it. And yeah, that is that is Gwen Shamblin, you guys, and Remnant Fellowship and Tarzan marriages and like all kinds of other crazy twists and turns in between. So do you have any final chart thoughts about this bitch? I hadn't called her a bitch yet. We charted this bitch hard. We charted her all over the world.
Oh, man.
Just final thoughts if you have them. No pressure if not. We've said
I do think that it makes sense how she passed on the business to her daughter based on her chart. Where you see Capricorn can be kind of like the inheritance in a way, like it's like you've built this thing and it's very like traditional in that way, like you would pass it on to your heirs, and having all these like her only like maternal placements in the sign of Capricorn, like it makes sense, her moon and Ceres, and like it's very feminine energy in the Capricorn space, so I think it does kind of fit.
Okay, that makes sense.
I thought that was a little bit leading into that as well.
It's pretty gross. Most things about this story were gross. Anything else? Are we done with her? I think we're done with her. Let's please be done with her. So hopefully you enjoyed that really interesting ride that went all over the place. What a crazy story. And what I think is probably the wildest is a lot of people have not heard this.
Yeah, I did not know about her.
Yeah, and this is so recent. And it's just like, how did I not know about this? Insanity. So if you like this episode, if you enjoyed this story, you can tell us. You can tell your friends and your family. You can write a review. You can give us a 5-star rating, because if you are still here, I think you enjoyed it, and you should probably give it 5 stars. Like, don't be stingy about it. We'd love to see those stars.
Don't be stingy.
Don't be stingy about it. We really, really appreciate it. Absolutely. In all seriousness, it does help the podcast. It's the best way to help a podcast grow. It doesn't cost you a single cent. It helps us so much. It means the world to us. And if you want more content, if you're having a good time with us, get on our Patreon. We have 3 membership tiers, so you get to kind of choose what works for you. You get different access, but everyone gets access to live streamed episodes, early access to episodes, behind the scenes footage, and all the bonus content. We do have some extras. So access to the charts, access to my personal notes, and some of the extra fun, in-depth things are on the different tier.
Extra.
Read all about it on our Patreon at darkalignmentpodcast.com. Follow us on social media. We are at Dark Alignment on most platforms. I think Twitter, we're like Alignment Dark. We're on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and all the podcasting platforms. We're also on YouTube. So if you... some of the things we reference visually, people don't always know that there is a visual piece to this podcast. If you want to find it, watch it on all the places. Watch, listen, do it all. We don't care. Binge every episode 9 times. We're not judging you. We're empowering you, as always.
We're empowering you. You're empowered. I want to make sure you guys all feel empowered on this podcast.
That is exactly our mission every single time. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Please continue to love yourselves, and don't forget, most importantly, to chart all of the bitches in your life. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.